So hello everyone, and thank you so much for the introduction, Toby, and also for the organizers for having me. And actually, I will just start my presentation to give you two aims what I want to show you today. First of all, I'd like to give you a historical overview of online communication within electronic dance music cultures, because I truly believe that online communication influenced and formed the collective identities of different communities or virtual scenes. And to evidence it, I will show you a case study called Transmediale Festival 2021 in the first part, because the second part was just ended over the weekend and it was a live event. But the first part of the festival was a complete online event in January. And I will also analyze or show you some results of my analysis of a discourse piece on Discord. So if we want to give like a little overview, a historical overview on online communication within popular music history, we could find the first references already in the ARPANET era, when the Grateful Dead's fans around the Berkeley and Stanford circles of students became like the traders of the set list of the concerts, and they sold those set lists via the ARPANET network. And then very similar phenomenon can be also found on FTPs later on, because the so-called tapers of the band, fans who recorded the concerts in the first rows, were trading them via FTPs and then obviously sending them out via post, which then later on became digitalized on websites such as Etri, Taper Section, and NYC Tapers. But to come back to electronic dance music cultures, we can start with the ethos or the believing system or the belief system of the rave culture, because the general belief in progress through technology and generally the electronic music production or electronic dance music production is also very highly technically or technologically driven. Therefore, I would say that it's not a surprising phenomenon that online communication itself was always part of kind of the histories of electronic dance music cultures. And how it started, obviously started with mailing lists, but then because of the overload of the emails, most of them became web discussion forums. And if you look back to the early web discussion forums and what type of topics they discussed, you can totally find a lot of references to electronic dance music and also to tech topics. And one of them is, for example, We Are the Music Makers forum, which has been active since 1990. Another type of application or platform I'd like to talk about is the peer-to-peer file sharing platforms, and one of them, Soulseek. I think many of you still know or remember how to share those different files from computer to computer, and how you could find also like-minded people via the chat function of Soulseek. And if you dig into the literature, you would also find a reference, Breakcore Identity and Interaction on Peer-to-Peer by Andrew Whelan, a very early analysis of the chat rooms from 2008. So online communication and music-related, in music-related communities, how to approach that topic. Theoretically, one could also move or turn towards the model of scene, and within that analyze these phenomena with the help of the virtual scene, or methodologically go towards cyber ethnography. However, I mean, of course, the outcomes of these fields or these theories and methodologies are close still to my research, but I come from a little bit different angle from applied linguistics. Already itself, the mix, when I handed in my PhD in applied linguistic department about electronic dance music, people were just already mind blown in a way that how can you do that as a linguist doing research on electronic dance music? And I found a way out with computer-mediated discourse analysis, which is one of the approaches of applied linguistics, and how to analyze these online conversation pieces. And before I go into the analysis and into my case study, I have to say or clarify what do I mean with this term identity, and also like this online formation of identity. Obviously, I talk about discourse-based approach to identity because our social identities are constantly reconstituted in discourse each time we think or speak, as we don't put, or as Ben Stoker puts, the discursive view of identity can be realized as a discursive performance or construction of identity in interaction. So from time to time we talk or discuss or taking part in different groups, it has of course a different impact on that identity. About my case study, as mentioned, CTM, the first part of CTM 2021 happened completely online. Just to know some words about the festival, it has its roots in Berlin's DIY and club scenes and has been active since 1999, so it has a long history. And if you want to give a general overview or like a general description of the festival, or what is the profile of the festival, how does it look like, one could say that programming supports a multitude of voices, backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. And diversity is a really important point also for programming the festival in terms of gender, in terms of nationality, in terms of music genre too. So it has this huge broad aspect. And this diversity one can also see in the numbers of the festival. These are the numbers from the last live event from 2020. And then obviously the pandemic happened and came in, and this year's first part, as mentioned in January, happened completely online with the theme transformation. And I think in the middle of a pandemic, we all know what this transformation might mean. What was the mission of the festival organizers? They really wanted to bring the community closer to each other and the community again together in a sense, also with these online tools, because we were obviously separated in space and also in time from those many time zones, how many speakers and how different musicians were invited to the festival. So they really applied different online communication tools, such as the YouTube chat, or the Streamback as an application was also applied for the speaking, or let's say the discourse part, because people could just record a question and send it in. Discord as an additional tool was also added as a live chat, and that's actually what was my interest, to go through those chit-chats and discourse pieces and to analyze them. Some words about the platform itself. It has its history in gaming, but nowadays it's used also for many diverse communities online. And as you can also see, Discourse revenue really grew via the pandemic, just like many other similar platforms did. And it's a voice, video, and text communication service. So when the CTM server started and the chat, because you can create different servers with the help of Discord, the first obvious post was the so-called code of conduct. It's a typical netiquette, but in my opinion, this code of conduct of CTM really mirrors also the let's say, the background of the festival, or let's say that what the festival wants to kind of show to the audience, like bringing together people of diverse backgrounds, experiences, cultures, and identities. So super the same way how the characteristic, or what are the characteristics of the festival, and obviously zero tolerance policy towards discrimination, harassment, and so on and so forth. So I chose the live chat part. There were a couple of other topics also within the CTM chat, but I chose this one because this was the most visited one, with altogether 406 posts and 4,800 word tokens and 1,400 word types. These are just records for corpus linguistics. And the daily program was always posted here, and artist information also during the performances. So there was some additional information also there. And my question was that how is the festival's profile evidenced in its online discourse, and what are the discursive identity or community construction markers within this discourse? And here I also have to say 2 words about my profile as a curator of the discourse program. So in this sense, I'm an insider. But on the other hand, with this specific chat, I'm a complete outsider because I didn't take part in the composition at all. So as mentioned, I used computer-mediated discourse analysis for this as an analytical tool, which analyzes the 4 domains of language structure, meaning, interaction management, and social phenomena with a very, very different and toolkits, so to say, and methods. And I chose the following phenomena, which were for me, all of them, signification for community partnership and reconstruction for the level of interest in one another. So they showed the community building, and also they showed self-representation and convergence towards community identity, and partnership could be also evidenced here. So as mentioned, I won't have time to go into details how this analysis really functions actually, but what are my results? So I have to say that the atmosphere within the composition piece I analyzed, or discourse piece, was really polite, friendly, and positive atmosphere one could really find out. And if we take a closer look at the interpersonal discourse behaviors, such as thanking, it appeared altogether 35 times, for example, within a corpus, or how people sympathized with each other and agreed with each other also showed this very friendly, so to say, atmosphere, or even the compensatory strategies, so using another medium than text, shows the similar atmosphere by using these emojis as the main ones. Empowering diversity was also a very present phenomenon within the discourse, because the audience members added their preferred gender pronouns within brackets after their names, which was not an obligatory part of the registration on the platform. And also when people sent in greetings from all around the world, one could really see that the community preferred those greetings which were coming out of Europe. So whenever someone sent hello into the group from Brazil or from Bali or from other side of the world, it got more reactions, obviously, than those people who were from Europe. Positive feedback was also there within the interpersonal discourse behaviors, such as about the music events themselves, about the festival in general, and so on and so forth. And the so-called political correctness was also very prominent within the chat, which was also partly thanks to the code of conduct. On the other hand, it also shows the profile of the festival, that to come to this festival with an openness, because you will hear maybe some genres which you didn't know before, or maybe some artists who you didn't know before, or some weird or adventurous music, as the description of the festival says. And about the power relations, I'd like to say some words within the text, because as a discourse analysis, I think it's also an interesting point to say that on the platform, one can also have different roles. As if you don't have any roles, it means that you are one of the festival goers. You can be part of the family of the festival, if you used to be the part of it. You can be artist, team member, or admin. And I checked also how many posts they created, those different groups. One can totally see this hierarchy within the discourse, that the festival goers had the least posts, and obviously the team members the most, so how comfortable one feels themselves within this conversation in a way. And here I also would like to point out the powerful and influential role of the directors, because CTM has its history by the festival's directors, who always hold an open speech every year. And this one happened obviously online. And Jan, one of the directors, also asked the people to be kind. I like to ask you to be friendly to us, friendly with your judgments, because for sure not everything will work. Some things will fail. We feel how technical, we will have technical problems and so on, which we did have. And also, for example, from the compensatory strategies, Oliver himself, the other director, posted this image about himself waiting for the next concert, which got the most reactions within the discourse. So to come back to the profile of the festival, one could really see that the characteristics or the profile of the festival was completely evidenced within the discourse. And I think that this, if we go even a little deeper, so if I would have a little more time, I could show you how really detailed, even with the adjectives, even in the level of words, it comes out that the discourse shows exactly the same way of communication, like what the festival wants to show about itself. And just to give you a little summary on this whole presentation, I would say that historically these online platforms have always played important roles within EDM communities. And by analyzing the language use and discourse characteristics of such communities, we can also evidence the mechanisms of community building and the construction of collective identities. Thank you. And here is the literature.
Great, thanks so much, Anita. Have you got any questions? While people are putting on their thinking caps, I might just ask how, because I love the idea of fading together and kind of making this sort of alternative and diverse community. I wonder if there were moments where you felt there were kind of people's politics being raised, or whether it wasn't kind of that space, but were people sort of demonstrating their inverted commas wokeness, or trying to sort of show their membership of this community as being one of diversity and openness, or do you think that was something that's kind of implicit in their engagement with this?
Yeah, I think the diversity point of view was also not only this preferred gender pronouns after the names of the participants, but I think it was also part of the way of the communication that, you know, we belong to that community. We know what is this festival about. We know that we are here with openness, and that's exactly the same way how we also communicate, that we accept failure, that we accept also technical problems, we accept a new gig which I have never seen before. I'm a musician I've never seen before, and why not to be opened? And you know, I also have to add to it, which I forgot to mention, that since CTM is a Berlin-based festival, we have heard it also from other presentations in this morning that Berlin is obviously famous and really tend to when we talk about Berlin is always the techno capital and so on. And CTM is more like really a festival for adventurous music. So it's not the same music you might hear there, like you would go to an average club evening, for example, or a club night here in Berlin. So this is why I think it's kind of part of the discourse. So in this sense, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I agree with Ivan about more ethnography of this needed, definitely. I think Discord's a really interesting platform because it has that gaming background and because it has this sort of public visibility, that there is a kind of sort of unwritten rules about how one engages with it. And I wonder whether there's any way of getting away from the kind of utopianism of these places being solely kind of positive community building experiences, whether people would ever not or ever dissent within the conversations, or whether it's just not something that you do in those sort of open forums.
I haven't thought about that actually. I think if you go really into detail within this analysis, which as mentioned, I didn't have time to go into that, but you can dig out. I mean, you know, the approach is named computer-mediated discourse analysis, but obviously in the end you have to do everything by yourself, just to go into the domains in a different way and choosing those very different categories or codes you want to go deeper into. So yeah, to be honest, I haven't thought about that.
time for one more question if there's anyone else with something burning to ask. Okay, well, I'm sure the speakers there would be happy to be contacted if there are things people want to ask them afterwards.
Yeah.
In the
And
meantime,
I can answer all questions in the chat if there is.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In the meantime, thank you very much, Anita, for a really interesting
Thank
paper.
you.